a video on making some fruit leather, hopefully. So, last year I was faffing around with apples that I got from my mum's neighbour's tree, and we cooked them down using the microwave method. And then I was defrosting these apples. They'd been in the freezer too long, but they were kind of quite wet, and for what I wanted to use them for, I didn't want all that excess moisture into the apple pulp. So what I did was I strained it through a muslin cloth, which drew out a lot of the liquid, and we were just left with like an apple pulp, which was something that I used. But I had this apple liquid left over, and I was wondering what we could do with it. And so I kind of thought to myself, well, what we could do is we'll reduce the apple liquid down, and we'll see if we can turn it into a fruit leather. So we'll concentrate it in a pan. There will be a part of this video that shows me doing that at work, where there was a lot more liquid than this. You put it in a pan, reduce it down, evaporate off some of that liquid, and then you're just left with the concentrated natural sugars of the apples and the apple kind of flavour. So this is that pulp. It's quite thick, it's glossy, it's changed kind of colour because it will have oxidised and slightly caramelised. I really should taste it first. Very nice actually. So quite sharp, and when we reduce it down further, I think it will sweeten up. So I've never made fruit leather before. I've seen people kind of make it, and what they do is they spread a fruit pulp onto cloths, and then they dry it out in the sun. That's not going to happen this time of year in the UK, so we are going to try it on baking parchment in the oven and see how it turns out. So on a low heat as well. So I did dry out some fruit the other week in the oven and a hot plate at work, and it was very successful. So I think we'll be able to do the same with this. It will shrink. I think we'll do two. I want it to be kind of quite, it wants to be relatively thick, so then when it reduces, it's quite thick. We don't want it too thin, we actually want it to be actual fruit leather. But this will be a really good way of preserving fruit. So I think maybe that's enough for that one. So we'll do two. We're going to have the oven on, and if we do one batch, it will take, if that's thicker than that, if we use it all in the one tray, it's going to take longer. So we'll do the two trays, so we'll spread it out between the two trays, and then that hopefully will take half the time. And it's just a bit of fun. So normally what I'd do, if apples were a little bit too juicy, I'd reduce the the juice down, and then add that back to the apples. So we kind of concentrate the sugar flavours and the sugars and the flavours, and then it makes like apple crumble and apple pies nicer. And also you can use this reduced glaze on top of the apple pie, and it creates, and sprinkle it with then sugar, and it creates this lovely crisp glaze which everybody loves. So that's that, and then a bit more in there, and we'll put it in the oven. And it's probably going to take quite a while, but there's no rush. So we'll put it in the oven, and we'll put it in at 80 degrees, I think will be about right. What we really want to do is just evaporate off the moisture and be left with the, essentially, if there's any kind of sticky, fruity, pulpy sugar at the end. And hopefully, because apple's got some pectin in it, it should hold it all together. But we'll see. We'll see. I have high hopes, because as we'll see in the part of the video that shows the pan, we'll pretend this is the pan. So as the liquid reduces down the pan on the top of the stove, it leaves a residue on the side of the pan. So say that's the level of the apple juice there. As it reduces down to there, we have a residue left over on the side of the pan, and that was kind of almost fruit leathery, sort of like those sweets that you get, like bootlacer sweets, that type of thing. So it was already doing that. So I'm presuming that when we put these in the oven, liquid will evaporate off, and it will form a fruit leather, because it did in the pan, so therefore it should do in the stove. You might have to turn it over halfway through cooking. Well, it's not cooking, but drying, but we'll kind of see. It certainly would work in a, I've forgotten the name of that things, something or other. I've forgotten those things. Dehydrator. It certainly would work in a dehydrator, but we haven't got a dehydrator, and they're quite expensive, and I don't want to buy one just for the sake of faffing around, which is not like me, because I normally buy things just so I can faff around. But I thought a couple £100 was a bit too more expensive than I want to pay. So I'll put these in the oven, 80 degrees, and we'll see how it turns out, and we'll see how long it takes. Right, so a bit noisy in the kitchen because the extractors are on. I can't turn them off, just need the gas on. So this is the reduced apple juice that I'm talking about earlier in the video. As you can see, the pan was that full when we started, and then it's reduced down to that, which is a thick syrupy syrup, and with a little bit of scum on the top of it, which I'm going to strain off using a sieve. So, sieve in a plastic container, and then we'll just pour that into there like that, and it will capture all that scum from the top of the apple juice, and hopefully this will turn into a fruit leather. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. All just a bit of fun. Like that. So we capture the scum there, and we're left with, straight from there, that liquid. So when I show you the liquid at the start of the video, it'll be in that container. So it's had a couple of hours, and it's getting a little bit more solid. So it's going to take a while, because it's only evaporating from one upwards, it's not evaporating downwards. So we're going to have to see what happens, but I'm going out, I don't want to leave it. What's that? Is that just a crease? No, it's just a crease. So it's getting there. We'll kind of have to see what kind of goes on. It'll get stickier, it'll get thicker, it might even start to rise up off the baking parchment. So we'll give it. I'm going out, so I don't want to leave it on. I want to be in the house if anything kind of goes wrong. So I'm going to turn the oven off for a couple of hours, and I'll turn it back on when I come home. But it looks like it's gonna work, and it'd be kind of quite interesting to see what happens. So it's getting there. It's slightly stuck to the edges, so I've had to prise it away from the edges, but underneath there it's doing alright. So it just needs to pull away from the edges, and then it's forming into a strip like that, which is fruit leather. So I want it a bit drier than that, but it is working, and you can see what I'm trying to do. I mean, I'll have another go. I mean, well, we're not finished with this yet, but I think where I got this fruit juice from, you're not going to be able to get that kind of fruit juice. You know, it was a byproduct of me faffing around. So, but I'll have another go at some point. We'll buy some pure, unsweetened fruit juice, and we'll do the same. So we'll reduce it down by 2/3, and then we'll pour it into a container like this with some non-stick paper, baking parchment in, and then we'll do the same process. See if we can do it with just some normal fruit juice. We should be able to. But there we go. So it's working. It'll just take a bit of drying out. It's getting a bit late now, so I'll probably have to finish it off tomorrow. But we're getting there. And then I've had some ideas. I've been swimming, and I've had some ideas about what we'll be able to do with it. I've got a couple of good ideas. Well, there's 3 things I want to do actually. So we'll have a go at like 3 different things with it. But it's working. Right. It's had about 5 hours in total. I don't want to cook it anymore because it's starting to go kind of quite dark, and I think it will get to the stage where it starts burning. So it's a bit of a pain to get it away from the paper. You've just got to be a bit careful. I don't know if it's been out for a while. It's gone a bit tacky on top. So let's get it out of there for a start. So let's have a try of it first. So it's really nice. But I've got this feeling that it's going to stay. It'll quite tacky on the outside, so we need to coat it in something to stop it from just sticking together once we cut it up. Now, what I thought we can do is we can oh, that's a pain, isn't it? Let's just cut the strip off. When you're making something like Turkish Delight, you dust the Turkish Delight in a mixture of corn flour and fine sugar. So we can have a go at that, and see if that kind of works. And then I've got some citric acid. So we might just mix a bit of citric acid with some icing sugar as well, and see if we can kind of replicate the what's it like? Well, we call them shoelaces in the UK. It's like strips of fruit flavoured sweets, and it's got like a sharp powder on the outside, which I assume is citric acid. It's like that sweet sour type of flavour. So make it a bit neater. Cut that off. There, but it's got this. I think it'll be the moisture in the atmosphere that's kind of getting to it, that's making it a bit tacky on the outside. It's just melting. So let's wipe my fingers. And then so this is the citric acid. I got it from the local supermarket. Well, it's not. Yeah, so it's an independent supermarket. It's really good, and they sell lots of spices and pulses and all kinds of different things from all around the world. I've just ground it up slightly, so it's really kind of quite sharp. So we'll mix some of that with some. So we'll do equal quantities of. It's a bit too big, is that? No, that's a bit too big as well. No, we'll just use it, it's fine. So we'll do a teaspoon of citric acid and a teaspoon of sugar. That's just icing fine sugar. Mix those together. And I wonder if we taste it, we'll kind of know if it's like the powder outside. The sweeties. Yeah, that's it. Although it probably wants a ratio of. It's too much acid in that, so we'll do a ratio of 2 sugar to 1 citric acid. Yeah, that's more like it. And we'll do a strip of that. Or 2 strips of that. See what happens with that. It's going sticky already, so I don't know if that's going to be the key to kind of doing it So we'll see how that turns out. Put that on a plate. Wet powder everywhere. And then we'll do a what we call it version. Then we'll do what we do for a Turkish delight, which is equal quantities of icing sugar and corn flour. That's about that. And then we might mix some of the corn flour into the citric acid one as well. So that's that. Did you? Oh, did I? I hope we got that on camera. I'm not going to redo it. So 2 more strips. So the corn flour will hopefully stop it from getting too tacky. Because if you put that on, it's just be very difficult to kind of store it flat. Actually, we probably should do different shapes, or make them certainly that little bit different so we can tell what happens. And I've got wet. Why have I got wet finger? Get them back in. That's all right. And then we're going to do we'll do a citric acid version as well. So equal quantities of citric acid, cornstarch, or corn flour, and sugar. So let's see how that one turns out. That's that one. See, they're already starting to soak up because of the wetness of the fruit leather. It's already starting to soak up. I'll tell you what we'll also do. We'll also leave some of the fruit leather in the dry hand. I'm not very organised today. So, and we'll leave some in the we'll leave one in there as well. So we might just dusting them might not be enough. We might actually need to leave them in there for a little while. We'll see. So, I can't remember which one was which now. It doesn't matter. I'll work it out. I'll work it out. But anyway, so we'll leave that one in there and see what happens with that. Did I taste that? Oh, I see, yeah, okay. Right, okay. No, that one's not worked. I can't remember which that one was. Can't remember which that one was. I'll have to rewatch the video. That's certainly not working, that one. So I don't know how we're going to store it. Because it's not going to want to. It's just going to want to soak up the what we call it, the moisture in the atmosphere. And I don't want to cook it anymore. Anyway, we'll cover these and we'll see what happens. So, I was thinking I should probably do one of these fruit leather strips with just granulated sugar as well, because it's the liquid that's coming out of it, and the granulated sugar might just soak up the liquid and recrystallize. Maybe, but we'll drown it in the sugar, I think. Rather than just kind of sprinkle it on and let the sugar melt, we will drown it in the sugar and see what happens. Just out of interest. The ones that I dusted with different combinations of the powder didn't work, and they have stuck to the plate like that. So it's obviously that it's probably the sugar that's wanting to leach out of it, and the moisture. So I don't know. It probably needs setting something. It probably needs setting something with pectin or something like that. Obviously, because I just used the juice from the apples and not the whole apples and the pulp and the juice. It's obviously needs something to set it. And yes, so I made hawthorn fruit leather last year, and hawthorns have got a lot of pectin in them. And what you do is you collect the hawthorns, smash them with you, kind of like crunch them up with your hands. I don't think I'll bother making it this year, otherwise I have another go. Scrunch it up with your hands, and then you push the pulp through a sieve or like a kind of like a loose weave bag, and then you collect that juice, and it sets kind of quite solid, and then you can carve it and then dry it, and it turns into fruit leather. I don't think what I've done here will actually turn into fruit leather, because I think it needs the pectin in it, and hawthorn berries have a really high concentration of pectin, and that's why it sets like a jelly without you actually doing anything to it. So not to worry, I've got a plan for this fruit leather that I've made. But anyway, so let's have a look at the one that's been, it's still kind of quite soft. I don't think that's going to, I think the same thing's going to happen to that as well over time. If I take that out now, let's tear it in half. I still think the same thing will end up happening. Yeah, with the moisture from the hands. Yeah, that actually does taste like those sour bootlaces that you can buy as sweeties. We might just leave those bits in there and kind of see how that turns out for a couple of days. And then this is one just left in the sugar. Yeah, I think that's just gonna. I think it's quite soft still. I think just like there, I think the juice will come out of that, and then eventually just kind of leach into the sugar on the outside, and do exactly the same thing there. I don't think this method will dry it out. I think it needs I do think it needs the pectin or something else to make it more stable. But it does taste like those sweeties that you get in the local in the sweetie shops. Right. So this is what we'll do. We'll put most of this in here and get it moved around and see what happens over a few days. We'll leave it for a few days. There's no rush. I'm not going to do it. And all the other fruit like that I've made, I'm going to do something else with. So we'll do that. It's nice. I just don't know what the practical applications are. Maybe I should have actually looked up making fruit leather before I start. But where would the fun with that be? So we'll put another layer of sugar on top of there and see what happens if we leave it for a few days, and see what kind of happens to that, and see what happens to those in the mixture of sugar, corn flour, and citric acid. So we'll cover them, we'll leave them, and see what happens over the next couple of days. They've been in the powders and things for a couple of days, and they're not firming up. I think I'm almost going to want to fall to bits. I think they would have become really sticky if I'd have just left one out and not have it coated or powdered in anything. So we can't make fruit leather from just fruit juice. I think it needs the pulp, and I think within the pulp it'll be the pectin that holds it all together. I'll give it a taste though. It's like sweeties, you know. It tastes like those belts or shoelaces, you know. That tastes like sherbet now. I wonder if sherbet's just citric acid and sugar. But not to worry, not everything works out, and I have used up the fruit leather in some odds and sods Christmas cake. But there we go, not everything works out, and if we don't try we never know.